of the industry, saying that we still want that free-spirited, independent voice. We don't want everybody to be under one umbrella and have like this conglomeration effect. And I think that we're not really seeing that in video games as much as we are in other kinds of media, like television or even print media, for example. Like the consolidation there is getting really troublesome. But in video games, I think there's still like a lot of diversity, which I think is great. And you're also seeing studios like Bungie who are breaking away from their publishing partners, or even studios like we talked about earlier, IO Interactive, saying, hey, we're going to go our own way and be successful. And I think that that is really encouraging.
Yeah, I think, you know, are the acquisition wars approaching? No, I think they're already here. Like, and I don't, and it's exaggerating, I think, in terms of what that actually means, and is that a horrible thing? It's happening. You list this, you know, latest things, and whenever to your point, Andrea, whenever I think about Microsoft buying a studio, right, I always go to Double Fine. And Tim and the team have always been very honest about how, you know, like, oh man, we were close to being out of business until, you know, Broken Age and the Kickstarter hit, or this, that, and the other. Like that, game developers and people who go off to create games want to create games, and they don't want to worry about the financials and HR and the litany of other things that come with running a business. And, you know, you and I both know that, Andrea, like just for our small businesses, the little things that constantly stop you from sitting there and getting to play a game, let alone getting there to sit there and create a game for it. And so, yeah, that's why I think you see people getting bought up in certain degrees and going somewhere, and it's to let the teams actually make games. And sometimes, like, you know, Gearbox, I don't think is hurting for money. I didn't look at their books, but Borderlands 2 is successful, and obviously they have a million different deals and things going on. But there is that part of it, is just get that offer, you get that offer, get that yoke off your neck to go do something else. And so,
so if you don't get
I don't know, you know, it's interesting, we were talking about the Square Enix stuff today, and you're like, you know, you don't know if Xbox has it in to do something that big again. And I wonder how much of PlayStation is looking at the studios that are still out there and feeling the same way. Like, do they need to worry about a Blue Point being snapped up? Do they need to worry about a Housemarque being snapped up? And if the answer is no for the most part, then they're incredibly happy with the relationship they already have with the studios, right? Like, it's what we've seen in terms of, you know, you were talking about layoffs and all these things that come with the video game industry. And while it's still prevalent, I think they were so much more frequent when we still had that AA space of video games, where smaller teams would ramp up to get the game ready for launch, they'd launch the game, and then they'd lay off the contractors they had. And it was a very turbulent industry, whereas now having indies and having AAA and having the space in the center, if you're in the center, you find yourself being drawn to these deals. I think you see here, okay, cool, we're Housemarque and we'll make this game for PlayStation because it will make sure we have enough money to make this game and keep everybody around and make something cool.
Absolutely, and I think what I'm really interested to see how it plays out is, does middleware make a comeback with some of these acquisitions, like Embracer Group, right? Embracer has bought so many studios, and just under THQ Nordic alone, the amount of IPs that would probably be qualified as AA games. I think that that's a good thing to bring those games back into the market, because the gaming audience is more diverse than it's ever been. And I think the more types of experiences we can get, the better. The more creative voices we get, the better. But as we have been saying, the only way you can do that is if it isn't a big financial risk. So you either have these really small teams taking on very limited risk, or you have these giant teams taking on very calculated, expensive risk. And to me, like, we need to have something in between, right? And I think that's what we're getting with these acquisitions. So I'm with you that I don't think that there's going to be like a war of sorts, because there's really just, quite honestly, not that many people with that much money.
Right.
And PlayStation is just in a very different place, being part of Sony Global, than Xbox is being part of Microsoft Global. Like, their market caps are very different. So I don't anticipate Sony making a big acquisition play after they just spent a ton of money buying Insomniac. So I think that, you know, it might be a while before Sony comes out and says we made a giant acquisition, but they might buy something like Housemarque size. You never know.
But it's also that thing of, like, I think Sony's made it, and I know Jim Ryan's made comments lately like, oh, of course the doors are open to still acquiring things, and yada, yada, yada. I still think Sony's happy with this second party, even though they don't call it second party anymore, relationship, where it can be that we've partnered with you for an exclusive for PlayStation. We're making this thing happen that way. And that way they don't have to take on all the overhead of the studio, but for a smaller team, they're able to make money. So Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Acquisition won't make on or whatever. Kevin, I'm mad at you. It's time to squad up, ladies and gentlemen. This is where one of you writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygame. Give me your name, username, and platform of choice. We read it here. The best friends come to find you, and everybody plays video games together. Today, Keenan Delaney needs help. Keenan is on PlayStation 5, and the PSN is Mantis MD94, all one word, Mantis MD94. I'm currently addicted to Outriders, and am going for the Platinum. Come hunt Legendaries with me in the Expeditions. If you want to hunt Legendaries in the Expeditions with Mantis MD94, drop that request over to PlayStation. Or I guess you could, if you're playing on another platform, you can PSN message him, hey, what's your Twitter? And then every time he wants to go live, you can tweet out a cross-game code and you can play games. Andrea, we ask people watching live on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames to go to kindafunny.com/you're wrong and tell us what we screw up as we screw it up, so we can set the record straight for everybody watching later on youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and listening on podcast services around the globe. Our new progress sets me straight. The new Nintendo Switch is reportedly using NVIDIA's DLSS tech for updated graphics. Thank you, Jennifer. That's what I was looking for. Danny Bird says the PlayStation Village demo actually arrives this weekend on April 17th. Next week is the castle portion of the demo on the 24th. Thank you. Gabe Hewitt says, in regards to a credenza, according to Wikipedia, originally in Latin, the name meant belief or trust. In the 16th century, the act of credenza was the tasting of food and drinks by a servant for a lord or other important person in order to test for poison. The name may have been passed to the room where the act took place, then to the furniture. We're just stupid.
That was unnecessary. I was gonna say, like, I also don't know that it was obviously what we get.
You know, there was a food that had a person in a building in a room and a thing, and then it holds up my TV now. Yep.
Yeah, so you see what I mean? It holds up your TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is.
Where is your TV, by the way?
My TV? It died. See, we put up the flowers here in the... No, we're moving this weekend. We're moving over so
oh, yeah, I've been seeing you guys packing stuff, so congrats. That's fun and exciting.
Exactly. There's a million things going on over there. But yeah, the TV has already made its way over there, and piece by piece, everything will. As soon as I have this show, then I need to run and do an errand. Then I'm doing Kind of Funny podcast, and then one more recording, and then I'm carrying that the setup here to move to an actual setup in the new place that will be a nice area and not my living room. There I have the direct sunlight. I have an Amazon box blocking the sun right now. I'm very excited because we said, you know, pandemic. Oh, I can sit on the floor for 2 weeks, and then man, I tell you what, it kept going. But speaking of all that, Greg, of course, this is Friday, your final episode of Kind of Funny Games Daily for this week. Of course, this episode isn't over. There'll be a